Off-road prowess is something I rarely toot my own horn about, so you can definitely guarantee this vehicle is going to stay clean for the week. Hey, welcome to this edition of Road Warrior. I'm your host, Grant Roberson. Now, although I didn't take this bad boy off the beaten path, I did test out its roadworthiness, specifically at highway speed. This vehicle requires no introduction, but let's go ahead and get past the formalities. This is the 2018 Jeep Wrangler Sahara Edition, pretty much meaning it's trail rated, even though, well, we never got close to one. Now, what we did do is actually test it on the open highway, putting several hundred miles on this vehicle in just a couple of days. And what we found is, well, while it may fit in the woods, it did quite well, going about 80 miles an hour. Now, from the profile, you can truly see the big difference between this model and the last one we test drove. This, of course, being the four-door version and overall expanding our horizon, both in the ease of ingress and just overall comfort. What's even better, when this vehicle's on the open road, well, it smooths out the bumps and feels, well, a little less go-kartish. Now, by the numbers, this vehicle like this extends by about 2 feet, 188 inches overall. Wheelbase fairly stretched at 118. That compared to the fairly short wheelbase that pretty much measures in right at 8 feet. Now, the rest of the numbers pretty much dead on to the standard model, pretty much about 6 feet tall and 6 feet wide. Even better is ground clearance around about 10 inches. But of course, when you're, well, hitting the open road, ground clearance, not that big of a concern. Now, this exterior design debuted last year, and with it didn't come tons of changes, no real reinventing the wheel here. The good old standard Wrangler exterior, as we've all come to know. Now, the four doors, of course, changed it up just a little bit since the CJ7, but for us city slickers, it makes it maybe just a little bit more refined to get the whole family inside, but maybe purists just prefer two doors. Now, what we really like is just they're sticking to the basics, but there are tons of refinements, not only on the inside, but pretty much on the outside when it comes to safeties, backup cameras, and even maybe just a little bit of different grille warfare. But only until Jeep maybe gets rid of these haunches, well, maybe only then will we give pause. Now, just a few weeks ago, we did test the standard two-door with the hardtop, and what we found is, well, it offered just a little bit more sealed tight interior, and we've all come to know this over the last several years with basically the hardtop delivering maybe the quietest interior. Now, with this soft top and at highway speeds, what do we notice? Well, just a little bit of fluttering here on the back glass, maybe in the speeds of about 75 to 80 miles an hour. That gave us just a little bit more wind noise, but at traditional speeds, really that didn't come into play. Now, granted, with the soft top, you do pick up some ambient noise from the outside, maybe the big transfer truck going by, but in nature, maybe the birds, the wind, or maybe even the occasional coyote. So you have a couple of choices when it comes to the hard top or the soft top, but there's even one more choice coming for 2019, and that is in the operation of this. No longer is it just simply going to be manual, but you can also just press a button and automate the process, making it just a little bit more friendly. Now, as for the back design, good old stereotypical Jeep Wrangler with the good old full-size spare back here, but some innovations come in the form of this backup camera, making it so much easier. And that's even better because you get the back cross traffic awareness, also alerting you should something come from your blind side. Now, as for the door operation back here, you could call this a 4.5 door with this little swing gate right here. Pretty much open it right up. It's going to get out of the way. Now, interestingly, for the hard top, this glass area right here sprung out of the way, but for the soft top, pretty much fixed into place, pretty much meaning you're going to need to slide things in underneath, tuck up. Now, what you're going to find as for cargo space is over 30 cubic feet, giving you plenty of room both straight in and vertical height. Now, if you've ever taken one of these roofs off or try to retract it, well, it's maybe just a few step process. Now, I'm going to show you just a little bit of it. Not really going to get into the dismantling of this altogether, but pretty much it's a straightforward affair. Now, pretty much you're going to have two latches right here with the visor. Once you do that, you can pretty much spring it up out of the way. That's going to get it to about right there. Grab here on one side and force it to lay down. There's a few more operations, but pretty much that'll give you kind of this open air. Now, interestingly, with the hardtop, there were two prefab pieces here that sprung out of the way like a good old T-top. That made it just a hair easier to make it, well, feel a little bit more open. Now you can go through the process just a little bit further to get this to tuck down with some nice tracks that make it a little bit easier. But again, I tend to just do this and then put it back. Now, before we get to the good old grill warfare, let's talk about what lies beneath here. Now, previously we did test drive a 2-door version that had the 4-cylinder. Thankfully, for the highway speeds that we tested, we had a little bit bigger power plant, specifically the 3.6 liter V6 engine. Now, I delivered around about 285 horses and 260 foot-pounds of torque. Even better, it was coupled to the 8-speed automatic versus the 6-speed we had previously tested. Now again, the 6-speed is more of a purist kind of atmosphere, but I like not doing the clutch stance, specifically even when it comes to stop and go traffic. Now, what's great is if you do opt for the 4 doors, your towing capacity will bump up just a hair to around about 3,500 pounds, giving you a way to get to the lake and, well, tow the toys. Now, the good old grill warfare may not just be right here, but you may want to call it bumper steel warfare. This is just something you don't see except on vehicles like this. Good old ruggedness, cladded in a nice protected kind of plastic rubber on the outside for protection, but nice and still and heavy, and pretty much minimizes any true bending affair up front. Now, the front end, definitely far from what we remember. Nice stylized accents on the outer edges. Huge circular throwback Thursday headlights, but they're definitely forward thinking, really giving you a lot of throw down the road, and especially when you're in bright mode. Now, it wouldn't hurt to put some automation in these lights, really allowing them to kind of think for themselves, brighten and dim as other traffic is headed in. Now, of course, you got the good old hooks here as well, and nice lower fog lights. Now, with everything going on up front with the nice stylized headlights, good old grill warfare, one thing they're eventually going to add is safety when it comes up front. Now, at the back end, we do definitely have the backup camera, but one thing that wouldn't hurt up front is sensors. And I see a kind of a sneak peek that for 2019, there's going to be some forward collision alert. Well, the only thing you need for collision on this one, of course, is that nice steel bumper I mentioned earlier. Push it to the side and then lift up. Now, it would be greatest to actually adorn that in a yellow that makes it just a little bit easier to understand what you need to do. Now, once it rises to the occasion, pretty much going to find that kickstand there to hold it up. Now, what you'll notice is, well, the engine does get a little muddy here and there, so it wouldn't hurt to spray it off when you get it, well, in the thick stuff. So what is the big difference when it comes from 2-door to 4-door? Well, it equates to about 3 more inches in legroom, really from 35 inches to 38 inches as you see here. Now, with the extra ground clearance, that pretty much means that center hump there where the feet go will be a little bit more shallow, giving enough room for 3 across. Now, as for the overall seating, you will find kind of a standard bench, but with this particular model, nice and cushiony and extra overall height. Now, as for the center console, one thing you'll notice is actually the center console headrests are all built in together, so give it a nice tug. That will all tumble forward, with the back of the headrest actually being for the cup holders. Now, there will be no center console here, but nice elbow support, and it is nice and raised for those outer occupants. If you need to lay the second row, despite the amount of cargo behind it, well, it's real easy. Now, first off, you'll see a handle up here. Now, it's kind of a 2-pull system. Now, first off, if these headrests are kind of a blind spot, you can pull once to lay these flat. Now, if you prefer to lay the seats, pull it once to lay the headrest down. Pull it again, tumbles the seat forward. Now, once you do that, what you'll notice is really a nice cargo floor, and it's done that way with this extra flap here. This really falls into place, clearing and hiding this extra void right here. Now, once that's laid flat, it is somewhat angled just a hair up, but overall, nice and flat, giving you a huge amount of cargo, more than doubling what is there. Now, of course, with the kind of 80-20 split, that allows you to kind of keep people in place and transition to cargo as you need. Now, the Wrangler can definitely deliver an adventure, but you got to keep the occupants on the inside somewhat entertained, because sometimes just seeing the nature isn't good enough. So what's great is you do have connectivity in the form of traditional USBs and the new USB-C up top. Down below is the traditional household outlet. For the pilot and co-pilot, it's going to have around about 41 inches of legroom and probably the best overall comfort with the sports seating and plush leather. Now, for elbow support, there's a nice high center console and you will find dual cup holders. Now, one thing to note, with the narrowness of the vehicle, there is no cup holders traditionally here on the door, but one thing I did find is this nice kind of netting here, and what that was helpful for is really holding some loose items. Even better, almost acted like a trash can to throw the extra supplies when we didn't need them. Now, if you do go off the beaten path, you do have a few handles to hold on to right here on the door, up on the grab handle here, or on the dash. As for the driver, pretty much the good old steering wheel. Quick operation for the seats up front. One thing you'll find for the driver is the good old lumbar here. This will be actually the up and down of the seat, giving you some height or lower it. As for the reclinability or uprightness of the seat back, well, that is here. It's nice and spring loaded. So some operation requires just a little bit of learning before you climb inside. For the climate control, again, everything right there front and center. Mode select real easy right here. Dual zones up front. Try to go find your CJ7 with dual zones, just not going to happen. But everything, again, real easy with some other operations like the auto start, auto stop function. Now you can turn that off, but unfortunately you have to turn it off every time you're in the vehicle if you don't prefer that option. Now, the older Jeeps I used to ride in didn't have power controls, well, of anything, but the best thing is innovation becomes, well, simplicity in the form of the power windows right here. Now, you toggle up and down to get operation, and you can lock them out right here. Now, if you want some more connectivity, you will find it in the form of auxiliary jack up front, USB-C, and traditional USB, as well as a power supply. Now, phones have gotten bigger. Crevices like this, well, just don't work as well. Now, with my iPhone 7 Plus, one thing I found is, well, it'll fit in there okay, but once you kind of hit a couple bumps, it pretty much will rattle itself out. Now, between the center occupants, we will find the dual cup holders here, a little bit of spring spongy holders that will keep the drinks in with these. Now, again, a little niche in between, maybe for your phone, but if your phone's just too big, well, it's not going to do much for you. Now, what you also find is your good old 8-speed automatic here. Interestingly, several family members got in and, well, asked what this did. I don't know if it's because of the fancy red gripper or just the way it looked. They thought this was some type of rocket science going on here. Even some didn't understand the good old traditional four-wheel drive selector. They were looking for a push button on the dash. For the gauge clutch, you're going to find a standard analog tach and speedometer, but a nice digital readout in the middle. Now, what's great is this is really colorful and interactive and can really be sorted through quite easily, allowing you to go through various functions with ease. Now, if you do go off-road, there's some great drivetrain information and other off-road information when you're in the midst of it. But again, on the highway like I did, pretty much stayed away from it. Now, if you're doing the math, you found the connectivity up front for 1 and you found connectivity in the back for 2. So in case your co-pilot gets angry, well, right between the front occupants is a connectivity way down in the center console, just to make everyone happy. Now, if you do want to hit the country and, well, take off the roads to feel a little more of the open air, up here in the upper tray is this toolkit. Now, what it does is have the various tools that are required and some great instructions in there. Now, again, I pretty much avoided this just for simplicity's sake, but you can take off the doors, fold the mirrors, and of course, remove the top. Now, that does it for this city slicker version of the Jeep Wrangler, pretty much keeping to the open road and, well, never tested it nor got it scratched or muddy, but what I like is this vehicle can definitely handle, well, the back and forth of everyday traffic and definitely go off-road should you need it. Now, the power plant, I'm a big fan of a little bit more power, especially when you're trying to get in front of, well, those 18-wheelers. Definitely want to have a little bit more pep in your step, but off the beaten path, well, the biggest thing was the ground clearance, really around about 10 inches, but water forging around about 30 inches. So that gives you plenty of clearance that, well, other SUVs just can't tout. And don't forget, you got 4 doors to make the little ones just a little bit easier to get inside. Now, as always, thank you for watching this edition of Road Warrior. Keep both hands on the wheel and eyes straight ahead.